went in not thinking that it would affect me, because with the song and the lyrics I've listened to during Lollapalooza, and we watched the MMTG with JJ. The boys were promoting that song. I've also been writing the review for the Chaos Chapter album, been dissecting the lyrics, all of the songs in the album, so I didn't expect to be affected by the lyrics. But I guess this is the point of a music video. It's supposed to add something new to the story, to the work, a new element of storytelling to the work, and it did that. And it wasn't just a storytelling, there were many overlapping storylines. We're going to talk about that. Yes, first off, do you guys know what liminality is? Liminal space is the space between spaces, so it can be cultures and belongingness. I know this in terms more of like a post-colonial perspective, because that's my area of interest when it comes to literature, but it can also be about language, when you're stuck in this state of bilingualism or like multilingualism, right? You're in a liminal space where you don't feel like you belong. You're in this neither nor state. Basically, you're a product of interlocking histories and cultures where you at once belong and don't belong at all. And I'm referring to this in terms of straw hole, in terms of cultures of hybridity. Now that I've explained that, the next thing we have to explain is Baudrillard simulacra, because I mentioned this a few times as well, but I've not really explained it too well. I mean, I haven't explained it at all. I just throw words out and sometimes I forget to explain it. I gave a lecture on this last year about hyper-narrativized contents and autofiction. So autofiction is a type of fiction where you fictionalize the real, so it's about self-fictionalization, right? Because auto means self. And metafiction is a form of fiction that emphasizes its own constructedness in a way that continually reminds the audience to be aware that they are reading or viewing a fictional work, right? And metafiction is self-conscious about language, literary form, and storytelling, and works of metafiction directly or indirectly draw attention to their status as artifacts. K-pop narrative currently, I would argue, is undergoing an auto-fictionalization process. What does this mean? So during 2nd-gen, band member concepts were a thing before, but now the production teams and creative directors of some music agencies, namely HYBE, are really leaning into that by creating fictional storylines, narratives, character arcs for each of their artists that carry all the way through albums, promotions, and they're using choreographies, concept photos, short films, and even with Tomorrow by Together, Morse code in songs to foreshadow fictional storyline events, leaving clues for fans to decode. And all of these elements work together to tell a multimodal, cohesive story. They're really embracing, or dare I say, reappropriating the fan culture productions, which in a subculture theory context is just classic, relationship between parent culture and youth subculture. What I mean by this is in terms of the Corey Knight theory, subcultural theory, that was famously rebutted by Gary Clark in Defending Ski Jumpers. So if you're interested to learn more about, cultural productions and subcultures and the relationship between the canon culture and subcultures, look these men up. When I mentioned about the overlapping storyline, does everyone know what a simulacra is? In a critical theory definition, according to John Baudrillard, what has happened in postmodern culture is that our society has become so reliant on models and maps that we have lost all contact with the outside world that preceded the map. Reality itself has begun merely to imitate the model, which now it determines the real world. What he says about this is the territory no longer precedes the map, nor does it survive it. It is nevertheless the map that precedes the territory, procession of simulacra that engenders the territory. It is no longer a question of imitation, nor duplication, nor even parody. It is a question of substituting the signs of the real for the real. Baudrillard isn't merely suggesting that postmodern culture is artificial, because the concept of artificiality still requires some sense of reality against which to recognize artifice, right? And we mentioned artifact just now in terms of metafiction, and his point rather is that we have lost all ability to make sense of the distinction between nature and artifice. Surprisingly, it relates to Tomorrow by Together's Lucid Lover and Me, because we see so many overlapping storylines, and we see so many separate what-if storylines, but the Yeonjun one overlaps with the real world storyline. And how do you tell when which one is real and which one is a simulacra? Baudrillard argues that there are 3 orders of simulacra. In the first order of simulacra, the image is a clear counterfeit of the real, is recognized as just an illusion, a place marker for the real. In the second order of simulacra, which Baudrillard associates with the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century, the distinction between the image and the representation begin to break down because of mass production and proliferation of copies. Such production misrepresents an underlying reality, by imitating it so well, thus threatening to replace it, right? However, there is still a belief that through critique or effective political action, one can still access the hidden fact of the real. The third order simulacra, which is associated with the postmodern age, we are confronted with a procession of simulacra, that is, the representation precedes and determines the real. There is no longer any distinction between reality and its representation. There is only the simulacrum, because we can't tell what is real and what isn't anymore. And I would argue that More By Together, Loser Lover is an autofictive metafiction that uses the third order of simulacra, because there is the YN autofictive storyline, which is the point of view storyline, right? That is the handheld shots, you being the girl, the you in the story, and then there's also the omniscient shot thing, and then we also see with Pongyu storyline, right? You're seeing him through the eyes of his live stream viewers, which is another type of you. And over-the-shoulder shot in cinematography is supposed to convey the POV of the character whose shoulder over which we're watching the scene unfold. So that was, you can see this from Taeyeon's storyline when he high-fived the skater girl. And then there's the semi-handheld shots, which signifies the candid rearward eye of the character, which is like a myopic first person where we are the YN character. So all of these storylines contain conflict that are resolved through escapism. The characters are all given a choice to fight and hustle in like the effed up capitalist system and strict soul-reaping hierarchy and through the family issues, or run away. But how do you escape from a world without ending your own life? That's the question, right? And this can be seen most clearly in Kai's storyline. Towards like the third quarter, there's the verbal montage of what ifs, right? The mashup where after Pongyu fell and the rap reaches its peak, there's like a mashup of what ifs, wherein Kai could have beat up the Gundae boss for verbally abusing YN. Option A, fight. But in the end, he chose to run away. He chose option B, to escape, and Pongyu as well. He could have fought back, but from what we saw, he just took it. He didn't say anything, and that hate that he received, he took it out on himself, and it becomes a self-identifying thing. And it relates to the idea of Sartre's shame, the concept of the look. When you're told you're bad, you believe it. Bad. That's how shame is supposed to work.
Actually, how shame works. We think we're supposed to feel it. We're told we're supposed to feel it about the way that we live and act and walk and speak and dress and are. And then we feel it because someone else told us to. It's not an organic feeling, really.
Let's talk about the parallel between Pongyu and Taeyeon hurting both their arms. I found that interesting. I wonder if it was deliberate and what it means, because at the moment, I'm not sure, but it's worth noting that when Taeyeon fell, right, he supposedly hurt his arm, and then Pongyu fell off the bike and he hurt the same arm, and they touched like in the same place as well. That was interesting. But Pongyu's story is probably even worse, I would argue, than Yeonjun's story in Love Song, because instead of the parents fighting with just each other, right, Pongyu is being abused by his guardian. And the upsetting thing is he has no one. The other four members in the simulacra storyline, they all have the YN, and Pongyu's YN, I think it's supposed to be the fans, us, through the live stream camera. But the thing is, the comments turned against him, was laughing at him, I think, when the guardian came into the room and was yelling at him. So there's that disconnect. That's very telling of his sociopathy in the capitalist system. His guardian don't understand his love for music, barged into his room to scold him while he's live streaming, trying to do something that makes him happy in spite of his family troubles, and he's reprimanded for even trying to find that tiny bit of happiness. And so that's why it's just really sad. Oh, I'm gonna cry. So that's why it's really upsetting. To make the matters worse, it becomes borderline trauma porn. When on top of that he bikes to let off some steam, he ends up falling over and hurting his arm, and then he started laughing as if he's gone crazy, because once you hit that stage, right, there's just nothing else you can do. Everything becomes funny, because are you gonna cry about it? Like, what's that gonna do? Self-pity can only go so far, you know. My teenage years has been traumatic as well, which is why. Anyways, so if we are going to be intellectual about it, right, we could say that it's Freudian in nature because of repetition compulsion in the death drive, as I've already discussed in my second video on this channel in regards to the similarities between Love Song and BTS Run. So there's that. However, it was really interesting that they didn't go for color grading for the MV, right? It was very bright, a very energetic kind of bright image, right? Despite the lyrics of the song, the storyline is very dark. The thing about the simulacra that I did to talk about is that the most complicated storyline, I would argue, is Yeonjun's storyline, because there is a plurality to his narrative. So there's a real world narrative of him being alone with a car, And that's, you know, the setup at the beginning, right, with him stepping out of the car, and you can see that he's alone. That's actually a different Yeonjun from the white and self-insert story Yeonjun who stole the money and hid from the police, which I actually found concerning on so many cosmic levels. Because one, why was he getting mad? The YN character was in the car with him, right? He got out of the car, started shouting at her through the windshield or at the car, and he was hitting and kicking the car even though he had the money. It's not like he was being arrested. What was concerning was that the YN character didn't seem scared or surprised either. So either she's used to his outburst or she's a product of his imagination. I hope nobody who's watching this is in this type of relationship, and please don't romanticize it or take it as an example of a ride or die romantic relationship. It's not. Such intensity may be thrilling, but in the end you'll just be left with hurt and regret and complex PTSD. Speaking from experience, obviously. It's just not worth it. And I'm not talking about Yeonjun, I'm talking about the character that's being represented by Yeonjun in the MV, by the way. I hate that I have to say this, but I realize now that I have to say it, because there have been some Yeonjun stans in the comment section that haven't been very kind. I've already hidden those comments from the channel because I don't want any of you to have to see them, and I don't want the comment section to be a negative space. I want my subscribers to feel safe and happy, to be a safe space. You're very lovely, and you know, it's so intelligent, because those comments don't really make sense and the arguments are pretty contrary. So I think there may be like young fans. I think those are young fans who are just not that mentally developed yet, since they can't handle proper discussions that we do on this channel. Yeah, I think that's the most diplomatic way to put it, that they're still mentally developing. I mean, I was young once too, so that's why I can understand their hearts a bit. You know, when you love someone, you just, especially when it comes to idol worship, it's like an idolatry thing that happens. As a product, you become a victim of idol marketing. And then you just, you know, in over your head, you just have all this love that you can't express, because the person you're supposed to express it to exists through a screen or on a stage, and you can't reach that person. So it's just, you know, you don't have a way expressing it. Anyway, so if you see any comments like that, just respond in a cool, intellectual way, and you know, explain to them the reality to them calmly. Sometimes it's like I wonder if they're watching the same videos as us, because they would be insisting on a narrative that clearly doesn't exist. Like I would be watching Yeonjun remember the choreo, right, the eye dance, and then the comments would be saying that Yeonjun doesn't struggle. I don't know why you would say that. I'm so offended that you said that he's a hard worker. It's talent. Yeah, I said that he's a hard worker because he is, right? You can't just become what he is with just pure talent. And I think I don't agree with the word talent, because as much as talent exists, if there's no hard work, you're not going anywhere, baby. There's a lot of pressure from fans on idols to have to like be this demigod figure who's talented at everything. Can't we just applaud hard work? I think that's more remarkable. Hard work is more remarkable than talent, because would you congratulate someone on being born into a rich family? Would you say, wow, they're such a good person because they were born into a rich family? Does that make sense? No. You congratulate someone for, despite not being born into a rich family, worked hard in order to support themselves. That is what is considered remarkable. We shouldn't treat idols as gods. They're human beings. And it just becomes, it's a lot of pressure on idols, you know? You shouldn't do that. I don't think we should do that. Speaking from experience as someone who used to be young once, while I have a lot of empathy towards young fans who feel passionately, I also empathize with these kids in, you know, these idols in the industry who have so much expectations placed on them. And let's not put them on a pedestal, because when you do that, it just burdensome for them to have to be perfect all the time, to have to, you know, get the dance exactly right after watching it one time, or, you know, pitting idols against each other in terms of, you know, oh, who does like a dance challenge better, or, you know, having to holding someone untalented, not being impressed just because, you know, they're a hard worker and don't get it from one go, don't get it in one try. So what if they didn't get it on the first try? The point is that you don't give up, right? And you keep working hard in order to finally reach the point where you nail every beat. Which is why I decided to hide that comment from the channel, and some of the other comments along those lines as well, because I feel like I don't think it's a healthy mindset, not healthy for the fan, and also not healthy for the community, not healthy for the fandom, and I don't want to reproduce or perpetuate or be complicit in it. As someone who used to work in the industry, this is my opinion, and I hope you would agree with me that, you know, idols are human beings, fans are human beings. We should not be placing unrealistic expectations on each other. Right, now let's go back to the MV. So at first I couldn't understand why a bag of money would just be lying around in the open and why Yeonjun would run away with it when he clearly looked at the CCTV and was like, yeah, it's there. But then he took it anyways and then he ran with it. And then the police came and I was like, what is going on? But once we reached the third quarter, rap reaches its peak and the what if montage plays out, I realized that the YN storylines are all simulacra and the playable characters are the boys, and we are all their NPCs. And their narrative game options are fight or escape. I'm talking about this in reference to their Chaos Chapter Repackaged album's official concept description, because I'm currently working on my official review, which is why the description has been on my mind. Yeah, and I'm excited to share my review with you because, oh my god, it's got to be the most sociopathic album I've ever listened to. I was so surprised and also so traumatized, offended too. There were some lines in there that didn't sit right with me and I'll explain why in the review. And I even had to call one of my correspondences in Korea to fact check if I understood the references in the lyrics correctly. Because just imagine a retired Sky University professor getting a random phone call from a Thai poet asking about K-pop lyrics. Where did you read that line? From which poem? Is this like an MC? This is like a Gen Z poet insulting a gunde, a boomer? And I was like, oh, you're offended too? I was also offended even though I'm not like a gunde. I mean, I'm probably a gunde now, right? I mean, I'm old enough. I don't know. Riya, you're also a gunde. So I think I am a gunde. I don't know. I called to make sure that I didn't miss any cultural references because when I read it, I was like, I think they're insulting me. I think they're insulting old people. What is going on? 늘어나면 사른덤 이젠 때릴 것도 없는 멍? Korean subscribers, please tell me. Are they insulting gundes? Because I felt offended by that line. How can you say that? Wow, it's borderline fatphobic. But anyways, I'm RIP. No Rules is a boomer diss track. There's also a lot of Mang. But anyway, let's get back to the Loser Lover and Me for now. So I would argue that the tour track with the boys performing on its back is a liminal space between the real world in the opening scene with Yeonjun alone with his car. And then there's the 5 simulacra storylines that are, alternate realities. So I will stick to my tentative suggestion that in the real world, those 4 boys probably don't exist but are a figment of lonely Yeonjun's imagination. Alternate storylines are possibly built by Yeonjun himself because to feel closer to his imaginary friends, because nowhere in the MV do we see him actually picking up the members and driving off. So all of these members exist in separate universes. In the simulacra, the only one people that they have are the YN, the U character. The U in the story, but Bomgyu's U is his live stream viewer or no one. Take your pick, which one is less tragic for you. Right, so Yeonjun is the only one who sees and lives in the real world, and the 4 boys are part of the simulacrum. But there's also a Yeonjun who exists in the simulacrum, and at the end, the post-song scene where he drives off the cliff, I would say he's crossing from the real world into a dream world, into a world, this kind of dream escapism world, where everything is better. So once again, this came before the Neverland thing, right? So probably that's where it's headed. It starts in a liminal space with the tow truck, and then it ends in a liminal space because he's not gone to the dream world yet. The scene ends as he is crossing the border. I think that is significant to note. Yeah, I think I mentioned everything. I haven't forgotten anything. So this is what I got from this MV. I don't know how much of this parallels with their autofictive storyline in the manhwa and in the inso. Actually, I don't know if Sujong will watch this, but can you let me know if in Korea it's called inso? Like internet sosal or web sosal? What do you call it? People born in the 21st century. What did they use? Is it inso or web sosal? So thank you. So I don't know how much of the parallels with the autofictive storyline in the manhwa and the inso, but from the album's concept description that I've read, the lyrics of the song and what's being shown in the MV, this is my interpretation and this is what I've noticed. Hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully my explanation makes sense. To be honest, there's also a time travel possibility in this MV, but we're not going to go into that because I'm running low on brain juice and this guy has set. The sun is set now, and like everybody, my thoughts are more intelligent and coherent after I've had some, time to think. So please do take this as the first draft, not scripture. Just my, initial reaction and comments. So they aren't the most thought out and intelligent, but they will be. My official review of the album is coming, so please look forward to it. I already even made a very clickbaity thumbnail for it. I don't know what you think of this. Let me know, because I don't want to upset anyone, but also I want to grab people's attention with it. I was very impressed by it, by the album, not my thumbnail. But let's just say that I was so inspired by one of the songs in the album that I ended up writing a response poem. I responded with a poem. Wow, because the imagery in the lyrics were just so beautiful and so vivid. I couldn't not respond. Maybe I'll post the poem up on this channel, because I don't know if I'm going to submit it to journals with this one. So please look forward to it. Title is called Spring Cleaning. Can you guess which song I was responding to? Leave a guess in the comment below. Right, so let me know what you think of this MV, and if you also noticed the same things that I noticed. And I hope you had fun, because it's been really fun but also really traumatic. Wow. I didn't expect to almost cry again. But please like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
주세요.